Okay, we're back, and now we're going to talk more about the album. Let's get started with the title. I know Olga is coming, and she's going to be on here in a few minutes. And she actually moved from her home in Russia to the UK.
Mm,
So, a longing for home is probably a very poignant thing for her. But
mm.
I know that's not the only reason you called it that. So, Nick, tell us where that idea came from.
Well, it ties in with the other albums that I've done recently.
That's true. It's a trilogy,
It's
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's all about sort of finding meaning and between philosophy, spirituality, and science. And so these three albums that I've been working on are all sort of connected with those sort of themes in mind. And so, a longing for home is all about the sort of the quest that we all have to find where we belong in the world, and to find peace within ourselves and to find our place within the within the grand scheme of life. Just little subjects like that, really. Yeah,
Yeah. Just a small, not that important part of, yeah.
small
Yeah.
things. Yeah, yeah. But anyway,
Oh,
that's what it was all about. And like you're saying about you know uh, Olga's situation, obviously, literally, she's kind of like exiled from her home at the moment in living in the UK. There's a track on the album which I called "Pathway to the Hermitage," and that was the title of that was kind of I came across it because it felt right for the kind of the music that I'd written, because it was all about there was quite a long harmonic journey that it takes you on. It's very sort of twisty, and it felt like a
yes.
road to somewhere. So that's why I called it that. But the other reason was because I thought it was to remind Olga of home, because obviously the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. So that's why it was called that.
All right. We won't talk about the song that she sings yet because
Mhm.
she's not
We'll wait.
here.
We'll wait for her to turn up for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. That I had a question for her, but that's all right. We'll hold on to that. Um, so of uh, of all these songs on the album, the one that absolutely moved me, stunned me, was the sage and the monk and the scholar, the sage, the monk, and the scholar,
Oh,
because
okay.
I really felt like this is like a band. This is like a real band
Mm.
creating a track for an album
Mm.
that, you know, it just was
It cooks, doesn't
of
it?
all
It's
of them,
cooking that one.
it
Yeah.
consumed. Tell us a little bit about that one, and we'll let everyone talk about that one while we're waiting.
Uh, well, interestingly, Jonathan picked up on the title for that one, and he said he thought it was a great title, which is
It
a
is.
Yes.
bit of
Yeah.
which I was quite pleased to hear, because at the time, I thought, oh, it's probably a bit of a strange one, this one. Um, but the title comes from a line from a book by Alan Watts, because as you
Oh yeah.
may have remember from last time we spoke, I'm a big
Yes.
fan of the philosopher Alan Watts, and there's a one of his writings. He talks about the sage, the monk, and the scholar, and that kind of like uh, rang a bell in my mind. In that, if you want to discover anything about where we're going and who we are in life, then a sage, a monk, or a scholar are quite important people to be in touch with, to give us guidance and direction in that kind of thing. Um, why I gave it that title to that particular track, I'm not quite sure, but it just kind of felt right somehow. Mm. But
I
it's,
You
thought
it's
it
were
the
was
heaviest
I
track on
thought
the
it was
album.
I thought it was the opening line of a joke. Sage and monk and scholar went into a
oh
pub.
yeah, meet in a
Like,
bar.
oh, I was
Yes.
really disappointed when it was actually the title of a song. No,
Oh, you did say that, didn't you? I remember. Yeah, yeah.
They meet in a
I
bar
was
and
trying
then
to be
what
all deep
happened?
and serious, and Caroline blew it. She just said, "Oh, is this a line of a joke?"
Well, in some ways we have bits and pieces of that in our lives over time. I mean, we
Mm,
start out in one place, maybe we go through a spiritual finding or yeah, and
yeah,
hopefully when you get to our age, I don't know if I'd call us scholars, but you know enough about the world that, you're fairly adept at dealing with it anyway.
Well, hopefully you're a
But go
little bit
ahead.
older and wiser. Yeah, yeah.
Huh?
Hopefully you're a little older and wiser.
Well,
Maybe.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good title for the type of music because there's so much tension in it. And if you can imagine, the three different perspectives of those
Sure.
three
Yeah, yeah.
types of people,
Yeah.
mulling over the big questions of life,
Mm.
you've got a lot of wrestling between
That's very
theories
true. Yeah.
and philosophies and that kind of stuff. And of all the tracks on the album, that is the one that shows to me or comes across to me as it has the most wrestling of
Mm.
parts. It's very demanding. It is like a
Yeah.
dialogue between three people in a way,
Mm.
and it is a bit of a battle. You're not
Yeah.
quite sure where it's going, and the time signatures are all over the place, and so you're left feeling like, what kind of dialogue is happening between
Mm.
these. And if it had just been a singular person title, for example, rather than these three characters all kind of wrestling with these great deep thoughts, maybe it wouldn't have been quite so effective. But I think actually, even if it was a
Okay.
subliminal choice by Nick, it's
Could
actually
be.
quite an
Could well be.
interesting take on when you're
Yeah.
sitting having debates about stuff that, there's a bit of wrestling going on.
That's interesting. Yeah. All sparring with one another. Yeah. Good.
Sparring, lots of
Yep.
sparring.
Mm.
What did it
Sparring.
mean to you, Jonathan?
Oh, what I remember is hearing it and because Nick sent all this pre-demo stuff, which was amazing, and I thought it was, you mentioned the time signatures. I wasn't able to hear it at and really wanting to what is he doing, and I remember going like really deep into the track and then seeing. I mean, it's a lot with a lot of good music. You have to digest it, and the same I had with this album I mentioned before, American Dreams, my favorite one. At first, in the first moment, I wasn't able to understand, and I think here could be also like that. But once I got into it, man, such a beauty, and I love the melody, the unisono lines. I love but I could say that for the whole album. I love the harmonic language, and I do agree with that here the interplay is asked, even if we didn't record together in the studio. It was one of the main things from my side for sure, and yeah, amazing music, beautiful music, amazing writing, love
All right,
it.
I don't want
Well,
to use
very nice to hear.
I don't want to use the word freedom, but let's talk about creativity. How much creativity do you allow, Nick, when you give somebody, a piece of work that you want them to work on? How much, do you say play it like this, or do you say, send me a sample? I mean, how
Sure.
much, like you
Okay.
say, not freedom. I don't think
Yeah.
you're a dictator, but how
Well,
much creativity do you allow? Yeah,
sure.
go ahead.
I try and hopefully allow maximum creativity for people to do their thing. I think the important thing is with all this music is to find the right musicians before you start.
There you
Because
go.
if you do that, if you hear these things in your head
Half
and
the
then you
battle.
think this guy will do this and this guy will do that and this lady will do this or whatever, whoever's working on it, and so you've kind of got it all mapped out and you kind of know what they'll bring to the table, so you don't need to say too much. So in Jonathan's case, I mean, I would record some guide bass parts, which I always found very embarrassing because I'm not a bass player. So I write these crappy little bass parts down and give it to someone like Jonathan, who must sort of tear his hair out, thinking, "No, this is interesting. Where do I go with this?" But basically, they're just a guide, literally, just to give some, to help with the harmonic structure, because a lot of the harmonies that I write don't really make much sense until you've got the bottom end actually in the track. So it's important from that point of view, so that when Jonathan's, is able to sort of work with the harmonic twists and turns in the music, that he could hear the underpinning of those chords from my guide bass parts, because they were very simple, but it did give it the underpinning, which I think was necessary to help with Jonathan doing his thing. But then from there on in, it was just, I thought, well, just he'll do his thing and it'll be great, and it was. And it's with Annika. I would never ever tell Annika what to play. You don't need to, she's just a monster. Mind you, she said that about you, Jonathan. She said, "Oh, get Jonathan, he's a monster." So I've got all these monsters playing. It's brilliant.
There you go. There's the name of the band, the Nick Fletcher Monster Band.
Yes.
So to answer the question is, I do try to allow as much harmonic freedom, creative freedom to people to do their thing within the structure and the sort of framework of what I write. Yeah. And I think that helps with the cohesiveness and the inspiration for people to just jump in and do their thing. And they're going to do their thing because they're such wonderful, incredible musicians. So you don't need to even doubt that you'll get a result.
All right. That was my favorite song. Now let's go around the room and you talk about your favorite songs. I know it's always difficult and artists don't want to pick their favorite, their children, but let's give it a try. And if not, I'll pick them for you.
Who are you going to start with?
This is your favorite.
Well, why don't you go ahead, Nick? You're the author and the.
Okay. My favorite track on the entire album is the Her Eyes of Azure Blue.
Oh.
Because it's such a I don't know, it's a challenging piece for me.
He always comes up with
very
great
challenging
titles,
piece,
by the way.
because in some respects it's probably one of the most simple things, because it's all about the melody. But to try and get the melody to work and right and to be phrased properly and get the right sound and to get the right inflections in the emotion in the piece, I did actually find quite difficult to do. And I think between myself and Caroline's guidance, we got it eventually. So although on the one hand it seems like quite a simple piece of music, but for me it was actually quite difficult to actually get recorded, to feel the way I wanted it to feel, and to get the level of emotion involved in it that I wanted to put into the track. And I love the fact that that Jonathan was able to play his fretless bass throughout that, and also did an amazing bass solo, which is incredible, and it's a real high point for me, that particular track. Jonathan's bass solo is just beautiful, really beautiful.
Thanks, Nick.
No, you're welcome.
You want to talk? Hi, Olga.
Oh, look, there's a little person in the corner.
Hello.
We've got a bunch of questions for you, but we're right in the middle of one right now.
Of
Jonathan,
course,
do you want to add to what Nick said, or Caroline, whoever wants to?
Well, I'll just quickly say that was going to be my choice as well.
Really?
Just simply because I think it's quite a departure for Nick. It's of all the previous albums, that it kind of stands out, I think, as being a fresh kind of approach to something that's particularly making him a bit more vulnerable, maybe because it's a little bit more emotive, it's a bit less cerebral, a little bit less of a genre, and just a beautiful melody. And we worked hard on it, because when he first brought it to the studio, we weren't sure which direction it was going to go in, were we, Nick? We weren't sure.
No,
we put like a guide part down, and we were going, I'm not sure where this. What
well,
clothes?
I don't know if you. I certainly was. I had my head in my hands, thinking, no, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, he got really down about it, and I thought, well, what clothes can we dress this beautiful melody in? It's got to be right, and yeah, I think we found it in the end, and you just played the most beautiful solos over it. So yeah, so I think that one, just simply because I think it reveals something about Nick that we haven't seen in the previous albums. So that was my favorite.
Yeah, but saying that,
but I can't have favorites because they're all great.
Yeah, they're all different. They're all interesting for different reasons. Yeah. That's just on a personal level, from an emotional level. I think it was an interesting track to work on, and it also it's one of the tracks that actually does feature Jonathan quite heavily as well.
Sure.
I don't think without it
Mm,
wouldn't have worked.
sure.
So that was
Is that your favorite, Jonathan, or did you want to talk about a different one?
No, actually, I didn't want. I don't want to be boring, but actually, that was also the track I would have chosen. I mean, I like also all the flashy stuff and all the crazy and rhythm changes and signatures, but I do have a thing with the emotional side of music. Also going back to American Dreams, the album I said, it's on that side where you really can, where I really feel strong. Like I like that kind of music, and Her Eyes of Azure is in this category for me.
Yeah, and
What,
I can just
what
jump
is
in
it
on that. Can I just say
what is
something
it
about that,
about
Mark?
the
Mark, can
emotion?
can I just ask Jonathan something about that? Because
Sure, yeah. No, I was
the-
going to ask him what
you sure?
emotionally
Yeah,
affected
it's just that when you were talking about Charlie Hayden, it's like he just knew where to place a note in the bottom end, and everything would just come together. You know, the whole band would just sound together. And I know you're playing electric bass, but there's an element of that I could hear in your playing there, which reminds me of like Charlie's playing, where
Wow.
you can just get the right note in the right place, and it just like, oh, that's so good, and it
Wow.
brings it together. So I can hear that, Jonathan, in your approach, particularly on that track.
Was it the emotions of the playing or the song itself? Because you mentioned emotions. I'm just trying to
Yes.
go ahead.
Jonathan.
I think it's the mixture and this, yeah, call it magic. Like when all these elements of melody, harmony, vibe, if they come together in a special way, it get a deeper sense. And I think in this track, for me, it's like obvious, and from beginning, and yeah, Nick's writing there was really easy to jump in, and I understood it, and I feel it, and
Yeah, I mean the harmonic language of that particular piece is a little bit more orthodox than some of my other writing, because is so it's probably a little easier to sort of follow where it's the path of where it's all going. Whereas some of the stuff that I do write harmonically, it can be a little bit obtuse, and not as easy to follow. And it's also more difficult to solo around as well.
Well, let's
Well, I find it so.
let's bring this wonderful, beautiful lady in here, Olga. And these guys met actually last year during one of our Christmas, and we're going to have another one this year, December 1st. I'm going to send out invitations here soon. But they met there and probably talked thereafter. But tell us a little bit about your journey, Olga, because the whole album is about finding the place that you want to call home. How has that been for you? And then next week, I'm going to be talking with her about her album, which she went through unbelievable. Well, go ahead. Tell us where you came from and a little bit about you.
Yeah, hello, and apologies for, maybe noises. I'm in the car, and I don't know if the quality will be good. I think, you know, it's very interesting because like it cannot for me it's also like very let me think, let me find the word. It's like very literally, like looking for home, finding a home, because I'm also in the process of my immigration. I mean, of course, I've been living in a new country for quite some time now, and a lot of things are happening in your soul when you are like embracing the new nature, new people, like different society, different smells, everything, language. And I think I was very lucky to get to work on that song during that interesting time. It's like the perfect timing. Because of all them very complicated for me. They were very complicated, like harmonies and also like free tempo music. It was very interesting to work with, to work on this song. I don't know. So can it be a song? Can it be called a song? Is that a
Well,
song, Nick?
whatever you want. I don't know.
Let's call it composition.
Whatever. Yeah.
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 Well,
So I mean, yeah.
I was just going to ask you, do you still have a longing for your former home, or do you now consider the UK your home?
I think I do consider UK my home. Well, I mean, I'm that type of person that I enjoy being melancholic. So whenever any place I saying any, but many places I see, I always feel like, oh, I wish I could come back. I'm so sorry I have to go. Oh, of course, especially like beautiful places that I get to see, some friends that I get to meet in different parts, different countries of the world. So, but I think that mostly now England is my home currently. Yeah. And they say your home is where your piano is or where your cat is.
There you are.
Yes, yeah.
I think
I
Caroline would
wholeheartedly
agree with that.
with that.
Car-
That's the best way of describing home, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now my piano lives here in England with me, so I feel very cozy, very like that I have like a like a firm land under my feet.
Mm.
Okay, one last thing that I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to go back around the room again. But you haven't been here, so the song that you sung, "To Hear the Angels Sing," tell us, did you come up with that title, or did Nick, or was it
I did
together?
not. No, Nick. Like the whole concept was Nick's, and the only thing that I like did as maybe I came up with the only ideas was, and it's actually a funny story because like this was such a complicated song to record. And when I finished and I sent it to Nick, I was like so happy that, oh, I've done it. I've done it. Like I've been really working on it. And then he's like, oh, I like it. Can you make some harmonies on top of it?
Mm.
And so, yes, this is the only thing that I like. I don't I
It
don't know
was
if that can be
your
considered
your
writing.
creative
Yeah,
contribution,
yeah,
wasn't
like a
it?
creative
Yeah.
contribution. But the concept and I think that the character of that I was bringing to life, I think it was born completely in Nick's head.
Okay, because
Mm.
you've had what I would think your prayers answered many times this year, and that's why it kind of sounded like something that you absolutely had to be involved with in singing.
Ah, yeah, I actually, oh, interesting notion.
Mm.
Okay, um, what's your second for? No, I'm kidding. Nick, are there other songs that you would like to discuss?
So I would like to discuss.
Yeah, how about the title song? Go over that just a little bit, and why did that become the title, or did it just fit into the trilogy?
The title song, I wanted it to reflect the album cover. So I got the idea and the concept for the album cover, and then I wanted a piece of music that would reflect that. So as soon as I started thinking about that title track, I kind of knew that it was going to go in that direction because I wanted something that would evoke that that image that's on the front of the album. What you can read into that, whatever you want to read into it. It's quite open-ended. And in the artwork on the front, you've got this sort of almost science fiction type sort of
Yeah.
picture of some people looking up at the stars and a radio telescope. And then in the sky, you've got this sort of portal opening of light. And then on the back of so that's this all very sort of scientific sort of view of things. And then on the back, you've got the church with a shaft of light that comes through, and there's a kind of round roof to the chapel, and that kind of gives the opposite, the sort of spiritual side of things. That's supposed to intimate the spiritual with the science,
Yeah.
and bringing those ideas together from the front and the back of the cover. And the title track had to bring that atmosphere to life, but at the same time also it had to be a kind of like a very questing and probing, searching kind of music. And and so it starts with a soundscape, which then evolves into a very long, convoluted sequence of chords, which I just play over. And that was also quite a tricky one to get right as well, to find the direction for that, because it's so easy to sort of fall into all the people that you love and all the musicians and the guitarists that you've heard, and you can kind of so easily get into that world of what they do. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to find my own way through that harmonic structure, which was quite difficult to do. But at the same time, I think it kind of did what I wanted it to do, ultimately. And it has that quality to it where it's very much a searching sort of questing piece of music. Yeah.
Carolina, you have anything you want to add?
No, I totally agree with Nick. I think sometimes the way we work together, he brings his composition, and it can just be very, very basic. And when I first listen to it, it's just I don't. It's a bit like Jonathan. I'm not sure I understand it. And so when he came with that particular piece and he said he wanted to create a soundscape, I'm not sure I'd seen the cover at that point.
No, I don't think we had.
So
No.
yeah, so it's sometimes I have to work quite hard to get into his head, basically, try and make sure that I'm being faithful in representing him when I'm playing, for example. I mean, I don't play virtuoso style, but I do a lot of programming and a lot of the glue keyboard wise that's going on. So, in that particular piece, we created that soundscape, and it's fun to do. But at the same time, it's you kind of think that there's a responsibility there, because this is the opening to something that's quite a profound track. So yeah, so it takes us a bit of time to discover the direction and the approach, but then when we're on it, it's easy.
Mm.
One question that I've always had is, you do have Olga singing some vocals, but on a lot of your, I love the titles of just about every song this guy creates, but I just wish, and he has had a vocalist on some of them, but how, I don't know, it just would be so much, it would add to the story if you did have a vocalist.
Sure.
How do you feel about that? Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I've used poetry in the last two albums, because I find that through a little bit of poetry, it kind of captures the essence of what I'm trying to convey, without actually using lyrics. So it just helps the narrative to the listener to get into, by having that there. But as regards, I mean, the problem I have is that there aren't many people who can sing the sort of melodies that I write. I write some funny melodies, and the range that's required, and I think Olga would allude to this as well, is the fact that when she was singing her part, although in some respects what I was asking you to do is fairly straightforward, the underpinning and the harmonic sort of movements that which she was required to sing to, are a bit unusual, and most singers find that really hard to deal with. I mean, Olga dealt with it really perfectly, but that's partly because I knew, again, it's choosing the right people. You know, when I heard Olga sing, when I you know, I knew straight away that she had the right voice. And then when we met, and and I didn't know this at the time, and she told me that she's a trained opera singer as well. So I knew straight away that that's that's what I need. I need somebody who can read a score, somebody who can deal with this sort of maybe strange, twists and turns in the melody, and also had the range and the pitching to be able to deal with it. And of course, Olga's, wonderful and did it brilliantly. But maybe in the future, she might be asked to do more.
Thank you very much for your
That
kind
sounds good.
words, and I'm always up for it. I like the challenge.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, so you never know. There may be something on the next album. But if I do, it could. I mean, it probably will be Olga who will sing it, because she brings to the music the kind of thing that I'm looking for in the music.
All right.
It's called chaos. It's called chaos.
Chaos.
Called what? Chaos.
Chaos. Before we get cut off, just real quick, is Nick going to be on your album, Olga?
No.
I've been thinking about it. It's just the problem is that the current album is almost finished. Like the things that are left to do there are mostly about the sound. I mean, the Frame album that I recently kickstarted. So it's a bit too late for this one.